Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Mega Group. My name is Linda Sylvester and I'll be your host for the Mega Groups. Our group today is scheduled from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Before we begin, let's go over some information about this webinar. This orientation group will operate in webinar format. Attendees will not be able to turn on their video or microphone during Mega Groups. You were counted in attendance as soon as you logged in. You do not need to follow up with us regarding attendance. If you lose connection, try to rejoin the webinar as soon as possible. You will still receive your incentive even if you get disconnected from the webinar. All right, everyone, let's begin. We have a very exciting group ahead of us today. But before we get into everything, let's go over today's goals. So first, we'll go over the opening ritual. Then we'll go into program announcements, incentive cards, and activation codes. Then we'll have Friends of TAP. Yi Moore is here with us again, the director of Black Girls Talk. We'll have a showcase of work from your small groups. The Bronx Borough Storytelling Series animation premiere will be here today, and Aravis McBroom will be coordinating that. Then we'll go into our animation industry guest speaker, which will be Bacorn. And then we'll go into our closing ritual. All right, it's time to introduce my partner for the Mega Groups, Lisa Clemente.
Thanks, Lyndon. And hi, everyone. So great to be here with you all on this Wednesday afternoon. So we are going to jump right into our opening ritual for today. So we've been in week 2, Lyndon, of getting to know everyone, and we're getting to in our small groups. So we thought we would ask this question as we continue to get to know one another. What is one of your favorite film genres? So right now you'll see in the chat, there's a link being shared, which will take you to an outside source, and you'll be able to answer in a poll, and we're gonna see this happen in real time. So what is one of your favorite film genres? Of course, there's so many out there. We couldn't get them all in this poll, Lyndon. But we do, yeah. I think, have a category for, or maybe we don't this time around for other, but we've listed a few. So I'm curious to see where folks are landing today.
Yeah. Looks like action is at the top right now.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, that. Let's see what's coming in second. So for, what I think is coming in next, well, it's a close tie perhaps between horror and comedy. Ooh. Yeah. I don't know. Are you a fan of horror, Lyndon? Horror
yeah,
films?
I'm a big fan of horror, but then again, I'm a fan of action too. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think horror is climbing up next. And number 2, looks like we've got some folks enjoying romance, sci-fi, a little love for fantasy, mystery, musicals. Not so much for adventure, huh? Oh, yeah. Just as I said that, popped up. Oh, pretty neat. I think my vote would be for sci-fi. I think that's one of my favorite film genres. All right. Wow. Thank you, everyone, for participating in our opening ritual here. It looks like we've got a lot of lovers of action films. So pretty cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, I think it's time over some program announcements.
Super excited to see what we've got, Lyndon.
Yeah. So first, if you received your incentive card, please make sure that you keep it in a safe place. If you have not received your incentive card, you will receive it by May 26th. Cards will not be loaded with funds until May 26th. You will receive an email with an activation code for your card by May 26th. No need to email us in the meantime.
All right, we'll move over to some schedule reminders. So there's a lot here. So TAP will be closed on Memorial Day, Monday, May 31st. If you happen to be in a Monday small group, there are going to be 2 options for you to make up that session. So option 1 is you're welcome to join a Tuesday group on June 6th that coordinates with the Monday group assignment. So they are as follows. If you are in group 10 or in group 1, you could come to Tuesday's group 14 from 2 to 3 p.m. If you happen to be in group 11, 2, or 3, you can join in on Tuesday's group number 15 from 3:30 to 4:30. But if that doesn't work for you, option 2 is you're welcome to make up the session on our TAP website. And don't worry, there's a lot of information, a lot of dates and numbers here. So for those of you on Monday's small groups, you will also receive an email with all of this information.
That's very helpful, Lisa. Now, if you missed an orientation or missed a group, and if you have incentive questions, you can visit www.theanimationproject.org. Now, who to contact? If you have questions about incentives, you can contact incentives@theanimationproject.org. If you have questions about scheduling or attendance, you can contact program2@theanimationproject.org. And if you want to make up a session, you can contact program2@theanimationproject.org.
Great information, Lyndon. Thanks. Okay, and now we are super excited to introduce a new series, Friends of TAP, where we will be welcoming guests who have programming that might be of interest to some of you. And our Friends of TAP guest for today is Imora Blakeney, founder and director of Black Girls Talk. So welcome, Imora. So great to have you here.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. My name is Imora, and I'm the founder and director of Black Girls Talk, and I'll be sharing more about the organization. So Black Girls Talk is a student-led organization at Bard High School, Early College, Queens, created to provide the Black female students, staff, and faculty on campus with a safe space. We focus on building sisterhood, professional development, and financial literacy through workshops, small group discussions, and bonding activities. It is also important to us that we engage in conversations that aren't being held in the classroom, such as Black women in STEM, colorism, representation in the media, and other topics that relate to being a young Black woman in today's society. See, next slide. Thank you. So I want to share a little bit more about how I started the organization. So it starts with my experience and having to learn to adapt to spaces where I was the only or one of few Black girls in the room. My middle school was on the Upper West Side, and I was one of 5 Black girls in my grade. And so it was definitely a culture shock. So coming to my school now, it's definitely more diverse, but incidents still happen on campus. One of them being my friend was in class and the girl behind her touched her hair and said she wondered how it would feel to cut her hair off. And so she was outraged, told me the story. I was upset as well. And I shared it with one of the women in the office who is now the advisor of Black Girls Talk. Her name is Karima Shabazz. And that is when she mentioned sister circles to me. We'll talk about sister circles a little bit more, but in short, it serves as a space for Black women to provide emotional support for one another and share stories. So with that in mind, I knew that I wanted to recreate the sense of community that I felt in my elementary school in Harlem and take elements of sister circles and create Black Girls Talk. So on the right is a photo of our first cohort of members in the 2018 to 2019 school year. And when we started, we had about 40 members that year. So we go to the next slide now. So a little bit more about Sister Circles. It serves as a space for storytelling, right? Sharing stories without fear or judgment, emotional and spiritual support. It's a space where you can have allies who understand you. It also serves as a space for networking, right? Meeting and connecting with other Black women. And defining your identity as a Black woman as well. Also, reality checks, right? Having people who have your back and can really understand where you're coming from, the issues that you're going through. So this is the, oh, sorry. Yeah, so this is, so Sister Circles, was really what Black Girls Talk was inspired by. And so we try to use a lot of these concepts in the discussions that we have and the space that we try to build. This year, we started the guest speaker series. I wanted to create the guest speaker series for our members to provide them with an opportunity to meet and network with Black female professionals who have careers in business, entrepreneurship, finance, STEM, and activism. Over the past couple of months, we've been able to bring in Manuela Yabois, who is a liberation activist, Beatrice Dixon, she is the founder and CEO of the Honey Pot, the Budgetnista, also known as Tiffany Liche. She is a financial advisor, and Paris McKenzie, the owner of Paris Beauty Supplies. So their pictures are on the left. So we got to hear from them, hear their journey, and just share with us about their careers and what they do. I really wanted to create the guest speaker series because though there are many networking events for young women, they failed to be inclusive of Black women. So it was important to us that all of our members were able to see a reflection of themselves through our guest speakers. And so I would love for you to stay connected with us. You can check out our website, www.blackgirlstalk.com. Our Instagram and LinkedIn information is on here. And you are welcome to join the guest speaker series. Our last one is on May 27th, and we'll be hearing from Dr. Danielle Toom. She is a cancer immunologist, and she'll be leading us in a discussion called "A Journey is More Fun Without a Map." So I would love to see you all there if possible. So please check our website for any other events.
Wow, what a gift it is to have you here with us today, Imora, and hear all about your work. It's amazing. And before you go, Imora, we've got a question in the chat. Wanted to see if you could answer. What age do you have to be in order to join your organization, your work?
Yeah, so right now we serve girls ages high school, so 9th through 12th, or 14 to 18. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Imora.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Over to you, Lyndon.
Now it's time for us to go over some of the work that was created in our small groups. Amazing work, everyone. It's always great seeing the creative things that you create. I look forward to it every week. Now it's time for it's time for me to introduce Aravis McBrew, an intern at TAP.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aravis McBroom. I'm here to introduce TAP's Borough storytelling series. It's a 5-month-long series where we created a story reflecting and honoring that borough. April is the 4th month, and the film is telling the story of the Bronx. So if Ellen may.
Noodle, cosa sta succedendo? Sta bene?
Va tutto bene, non ti ferire. Devi restare con il tuo proprietario.
Grazie, la gentilezza è un parte di te, la nostra cultura in un parte di noi.
De nada, yo también. Ten cuidado de ahora en adelante.
Oh my gosh, it came out amazing. I know so much hard work and dedication went into that. So now I'm gonna read a quote by Harris. It was a pleasure working with Stephanie, Brandon, and Lyndon, and especially my team members. Together, we made a story that is meaningful and dedicated to the epitome of the Bronx. I learned new ideas like story development, as well as character development, dialogue, emotions, and with our wonderful rigger, Brandon, that made our story come to life, and it gave me a whole new perspective into the world of animation. Thank you so much, Harris, for sharing your words with us. Now I'm gonna invite the whole BSS team to come on camera and introduce ourselves. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Hello.
I'm gonna, sorry.
Sorry, should I introduce myself first? Or
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Brandon. I'm the lead animator for the Bro Storytelling, and I'm also a rigger.
Hey everyone, my name is Steph. I am the creative arts therapist and co-facilitator for the group.
And it's me again, Linda Sylvester. I'm the community outreach specialist for TAP.
I'm Carolina, and I am team member of Aravis and also my fellow teammates at the BSS team.
Thanks for introducing yourself, guys. Now I'm gonna moderate the Q&A portion, and we'll take 10 minutes to answer any questions that anyone has live. Actually, I have a quick question. I know we were talking about changing rendering from Maya to Unreal. If Brandon can go into detail about how that was and if it happened, because I saw Autodesk at the end, so maybe a little bit more information on that.
Oh, that's true. I don't know if, do we have Unreal in the credits? I think we might need to change that. But yeah, we did make the switch to Unreal for this film. It was a bit of a learning process, a little bit of trial and error. The transition had some hiccups due to like geometry. Some of the clothing on the characters needed to be triangulated in order to work properly in Unreal. So I had to export it multiple times and understand what each error message meant. But once everything transitioned smoothly and was in Unreal, all I needed to do was change some of the material attributes, and I was able to just render right away. The rendering process was a lot faster. In Unreal, everything is real-time rendering, and to preview what your lighting looks like, you just have to build the lighting. That part takes a little long. Like it can take maybe, depending on your lighting, it could take like 30 minutes. I think mine was like 15. And it looked pretty good. Once the lighting was set up and the rendering started, the entirety of the film finished in I'm gonna say maybe 40 minutes.
That's great.
If it was in Maya, it would have taken a couple days.
Right. So as a follow-up question, do you see TAP moving into using that as the primary source?
I think it's good to find the balance between the two. It definitely would speed up things as long as we, because this first one, it was a learning process. Once we get it cemented in our brains, it'll be a lot smoother and quicker. I think it's something we'd like to pursue.
Thank you for answering. So I want to ask, how do you feel about the project? Like, do you think that your project conveys your message? And the question is open to everyone to answer.
I know for me, I am pretty happy with it. There are a few polishing things that I would have liked to have fixed. I hate to point out the flaws in the film, but at some points the character's skin comes through the clothes, and um, I know how to fix it in Maya, but unfortunately, because we exported it from Maya to Unreal, we couldn't edit it and hide those errors. So that was something that bugged me.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think Brandon probably focuses on the technical aspect because he was the animator on this. While as a viewer and also as a participant who kind of worked on the story part, like the development part, I didn't feel that way. So that's the good, I guess, the good part. But there's always like chances for improvement, I would have to say, like, because ever better, you know. But I was for this question, I wanted to add that it was a pretty interesting kind of learning curve because I remember this being like one of the very first films that we had to like record like for a long time. Like there were two other team members, not me, and not everyone. Wait, the dog. Wait, actually, even the dog's recording was one of us.
Barking. Yeah.
Barking. That was really interesting. That was like I think it was like one of the fun parts working together as a team. We all got to hear everyone like record, and everyone was just like shy. But then after a while, we all just kind of got used to people recording, and then yeah, it was pretty quick though in comparison to like usual like studio recording. But we did it over Zoom, so that was like we're pretty dope, you know. So
Right.
yeah. Oh, about conveying the message. I feel like it does. Wanted to know what others feel like the viewers who weren't involved in the development process, because I think sometimes when we are involved and immersed in the story making, we might miss out some factors. But the parts that I see that were conveyed well was like the close-ups and the tattoos, which is usually depicted as something negative. And also just like the dialogue between the two and their actions, how it reflected. So I think that's how the message is being projected really well. And it's hard to do so in a short film. So the close-ups are like extremely important.
Yeah. We got the hands, we got the shears in, which we really, really wanted to add. So it worked out great. Steph or Lyndon, would you like to add?
Sure. I personally think that the film came out pretty great. From an animation side, I totally understand how Brandon feels, seeing those little, those little things. And I know how it is, so I totally understand. But overall, I think the message definitely came through very clear. And yeah, like Carolina said, there's always room for improvement. But overall, I really enjoyed the film.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think I just echo what everybody's saying. I know, Aravis, you mentioned some really beautiful reflections on the film. I'd love to hear from you as well. But for me, as an observer of the group, it was just so beautiful how the ability to collaborate and really listen to everyone's needs and come to agreements when maybe there were conflicting ideas, and the overall support that we all had for each other within the group, I feel like was really reflected in the story. And I know you had, Aravis, I really want to hear from you before we run out of time.
Thank you, Steph. Yeah, I think just to piggyback off of what everyone said, it was really fun to collaborate and make this really nice story of showing and showcasing the Bronx in such a positive way, whereas mostly people usually like stereotype the Bronx or have preconceived notions about the Bronx when there's so much rich history and culture there that people don't really discuss or don't think about always. And also it really being a story about like having friendship, having kinship with somebody. And also we have the girl being disabled, so we have that that visibility with a disability that a lot of people really don't see and don't really get to, like, you know, we don't really hear stories where we see disabled characters or they're showcased in a different light where, you know, they are, you know, positive. It's not their downfall at all. So it was really nice to create that story with everyone's input and, you know, all of us agreeing on that.
Thank you so much, Aravis. And with that, we have come to our time.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for sharing the premiere with us. It's been a pleasure to moderate. If we didn't get to answer your question, you can put the question once this is up on YouTube. And I'm gonna pass it back to Lyndon and Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aravis and the Borough Storytelling team. It was amazing hearing from everyone. And congratulations on your work. I love the film. And now it's time for us to transition to our guest speaker segment. I'm going to pass it over to Kat Golaski, TAP's Industry Outreach Advisor.
Thank you very much, Lyndon. It's such a pleasure to be here once again with you all this week and during what is a very fun-filled and jam-packed schedule with a lot of wonderful special guests. Adding to our list of special guests for this afternoon, it gives me pleasure to welcome Picorn Bapavesa. He is an incredibly talented CG, AR, and VR lead, most recently having worked at SIOP and Odd New York. He's also an adjunct lecturer, having taught at Brooklyn College. He's also a dear friend and family member of the TAP family, having taught here as well. So we're really happy to have you here, Picorn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's been so long. With that said, I'd love for you to, much like I ask our special guests each week, I'd love to ask you perhaps to expand a little bit about your personal story, how you got in the industry and what brought you here.
Well, sure. I think I always wanted to do something in the art world. And as my mom, you know, we discussed it and she's like, well, how are you gonna make money doing art? And I was like, well, I don't know. How about graphic design? You know, okay, well, let's go to school for graphic design. That seems more sensible. So I went to school for graphic design and I fell into a graduate level class and about animation. And I was like, wow, what is this crazy thing about, you know, moving picture? And from there, I fell into an internship and it started my career in this whole industry. This is back in 96, 95. 95.
I always like to say that. What is time?
What is time? Yeah, it really does fly by. So that kind of, you know, that kind of graphic design sensibility where I approach things from a more graphic point of view rather than a kind of visual effects point of view landed me also at MTV back in 97 and doing on-air graphics. And that's how I entered the industry. Eventually around 2000, I joined up with a company named SIOP and I was there for almost 18 years, I think, until recently.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Now, I'm conscious you brought some projects to share within this space, but I'd love for you to also, being the fact that I spoke about how you know, you're a really talented CG lead, you know, kind of conscious for those who are within our space right now, what that looks like. If you could kindly expand upon what computer graphics are, what that part, how that relates to the world of post-production, such that, you know, for those of us who may not know as much about CG, they can get some concept, some scope.
Some idea of what I do day to day.
Basically,
yeah. Besides make myself coffee, no. I, you know, I'm mainly in the commercial world, so we make a lot of commercials, like advertisements, and you'll see everything from, you know, like cars that don't exist in real life brought to life, or animated characters brought to life that are very 3D, or even just spinning logos, you know, that you see. Those kind of 3D graphics are peppered throughout our industry or our visual entertainment life. So it's not quite like, you know, the Pixar movies and all of that, but it's just, you know, it's kind of like similar, but on TV side of things. As a CG lead, and generally that's what I would be, or CG supervisor, that kind of management role. I would help gear the project to the needs of the client. Basically, I would lead a team of specialists and generalists, and what I mean by that is there are people who kind of make, say, the car, they make the shape of the car, and then there are people who animate that, and there are people who have the car explode. That's different people. That's very other specialists who do effects work, and then there are people who make it look pretty. Like, is it metal? Is it clay? Is it, all sorts of those things. And I kind of bring them all together in and try to give them room and space and time to create what they need to create for the director and the client. So I'm generally, conversing with the director and the producer, and producer basically manages our time and money and so forth, and tries and manages the expectations for the clients, and try to come up with a solution on a technical level and somewhat of a creative level to make sure that we're all aligned and things are achievable. And that's basically kind of what I do.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, I guess without further ado, and off the back of that wonderful explanation, I'd love for you to share perhaps a project or two that might have resonated with you more recently. I'm conscious that you did work on a really, really cool virtual production recently.
Yeah.
And, it would be a really great opportunity to share with our wonderful participants, the world of virtual production and what that entails when you're.
Yeah, maybe before I play the video, I'll just explain a little bit about virtual production.
That'd be wonderful.
Speaking about Unreal, this is one of the engines that are being used to render real-time graphics for virtual production. And what that is essentially, you guys might have seen some old-timey movies where somebody's driving in a car and then you see a picture of the road behind them kind of going, right? But it's really just on a white canvas that's being projected. That's really all it is, but in a modern world with today's technology. So we're using basically a whole bunch of, for simpler terms, a bunch of TVs all over, like almost 360. Sometimes actually it's 270-degree TV. Sometimes projected on the ceiling as well. And all those TVs are being rendered with the Unreal Engine, a real. Well, not so real. It's a fake, in CG generated environment. And the interesting part about that is that there's a real physical camera that you put on set, and real people sitting in there, and in this space that's surrounded by TVs. And that camera is being captured in terms of how it's moving in that space, and that data is being transferred to Unreal and a bunch of big computers to render the appropriate perspective in real time, so as to kind of fake the idea that people are actually in that space. Most famously, it's been used on The Mandalorian. You guys have seen that show. That's basically the idea. A lot of that environment, the ever expanding deserts and so forth, were actually virtual sets that were shot inside a warehouse space. We were fortunate on the last project I worked with to actually work with the director of photography who actually worked in The Mandalorian. So we had a very, it was actually really, it was good because we had shorthand, conversations with him. He already knew what was going on. All this is very new technology. The place that we shot at, they opened up like maybe 3-4 months ago. So it was kind of, it was a very, everything was so brand new. Epic was there. Epic, who create Unreal Engine, they had people there making sure that any glitches and stuff like that were being solved. So there were a lot of big brains on this project. I was very fortunate to be a part of that and listening in and trying to absorb some of that craziness.
And I'm sure you 100% did.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere. The harder part is to get it back out and use it, right? So yeah, let me share my screen and show you the project. This is for me, it was about a 3-month project. I think, I've seen articles saying this is the first commercial use of virtual production.
I myself was reading a few articles ahead of your visiting us this afternoon, and I'm conscious that I think it is actually.
Woohoo!
There haven't been any challenges to that.
All right. So we made history. That's really cool.
That is really cool. And I'm, I'd love for you, as you show this project, to also speak to the production process, because I know you put in a lot of hours onto this project, and I know that you and your colleagues all put in a lot of time, because it was very involved.
Yep. This wasn't normal. This was one of the toughest projects I've ever worked on in my 20-year span. It was hard. I'm still recovering physically from that, and I've been done for about 3 weeks or so ago. So.
Yeah, I realize that when I've been messaging you throughout the past few weeks alone, I know that you were definitely always online, always working.
Yeah, and well, I mean, like, here, let's play some visuals before, because it's just a talking head for the last whatever bits now. I know we can come back and talk about the nitty-gritties of that production. Okay, share sound is on. All right. So it's called Resort World Las Vegas. If you guys want to Google that, you can find that. Make it bigger.
Some familiar faces here. Goodness, Bitcoin, it looks like you put a lot of work into this project. It's pretty impressive.
It was crazy. A lot of his sets that were very unreal looking, right? So
Right.
yeah, like all of this kind of stuff.
How big was the team on this project?
Well, there were, as far as we had a couple of partners with us. One is a place called ERG. They work out of Las Vegas, and their team was only like 3 or 4 people who basically dealt with the Unreal project, maybe 5. So that was pretty small. And we had another company in Thailand that was doing a lot of asset creation, modeling, and texturing work. And they, I can't remember the exact number, but we would just partner up with them. So I had only a person I was directly in contact with. As far as like SciOp Local, it was just me and 2 other local anime people, one rigger and one modeler, because one of the problems was, all this beauty work had to be done prior to the shoot. Okay. All this stuff kind of had to be created prior to the shoot. So we were rushing towards a shoot date of late March, March 20 something, and I joined on early February. So we basically had a month to create stuff that, design frames weren't locked. So there was that issue. And create stuff, optimize it for Unreal, bring it into Unreal, shade it and light it, and then test it on stage to make sure it's working, and all of that. It was quite compressed, that timeline. So the team wasn't huge. So then there was a team also at the studio itself, the Nance studio, which is where we shot. that was on set. Once they got all the stuff into Unreal and it was moving, they were on set tweaking and upgrading and adjusting colors and lights on set.
I'm starting to see some really wonderful questions in the chat. Peter is wondering how much of this was visually augmented, so to speak.
You know, that's hard to say. Let's just say that, you know, like this scene here, let me try to get here. That one, this one here, right? Celine Dion is there for real, right? But all of this stuff here is that big TV projection I was talking about. That's not real, but it's being casted in real time. If you look closely, you'll see there's a line right about here. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, so the line is about there. There's probably a better shot than this. Let me see. So all of this is real, right? Just being shot for real. But all this turnaround, you see that? The line, you can kind of see the line, but the real stuff ends right about there. And look at that. Look at how everything connects, you know? So all the stuff behind there, the shoe, the extra mushroom-looking thingy, all that stuff.
What do you call that?
Yeah. So you see, like this shot here, everything back there is fake except for like the stacked chips and stuff around her. So the integration is pretty awesome, I think. You know, we didn't have to do any extra post work here except for some beauty work to, you know, soften the wrinkles and such on her.
Zara's wondering, did you actually get to work with Katy Perry?
I did not. I was not the virtual production supervisor on set, but Katy was there. I watched the whole shoot. That's the closest I got, was pretty much as close as you're getting right now to Katy Perry. Everybody seemed really cool, you know. She got into the mermaid costume thing, and yeah. No, I didn't get to work with her directly, no.
But you did sort of reference being on the shoot still remotely.
Yeah, so I was a part of many others, clients and so forth, were being Zoom. You know, the shoot was on Zoom basically, so it was being broadcast to the clients and the agency because there's a limited amount of people that can be on the set because of COVID. So you know, the supervisor was there, the director was there, some of the representative from the agency was there. I think the client was fully remote, watching it all unfold in real time.
Wonderful. And Emma's wondering what you felt was the hardest part about this project.
Oh, the hardest part. Oh, well, that's a good frame to stop on. The hardest part was trying to get decisions made prior to our creation of the environment. Like, you know, the pinball scene I made in a weekend because we either were going to pull the job on Monday, like we can't make it if they don't approve this design, you know, and designs were going through pencil sketches and paintings and design, you know, process, which is not getting anywhere. They just kept cycling through like, no, we don't like this, we like this, we don't like this. I think the hardest part was getting that nailed down. The agency just could not, you know, they just kept spitballing and they just kept pushing it. And then it came down to, okay, this is our last deadline. And so I mocked up something in 3D. You know, spent the whole weekend with the director going, okay, I think this might work and solve all of their issues. Didn't solve exactly all their issues, but we didn't close the production. So that was good. So the hardest part. Yeah, so that was one of the hard part. The other part was that I was working with people in Las Vegas and Thailand. So the time differences were rough. So I was up, you know, talking to Thailand at 8 in the morning and talking to Thailand at 11, you know, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then getting my work done as well throughout the day and trying to get, you know, stuff done at night and so forth. And that continued for a good month solid of, you know, 16, 17-hour days through the weekends. And at the end of that, I was making really bad decisions and being a little delirious, but, you know, we made it through just in time. So that was the other part that was really taxing. It was a physical endurance kind of project.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine. And I can't imagine how draining that was for you.
Yeah, that was tough. You know, it's just because I was also like I was the traffic controller in a sense. You know, I was like making sure that the director's notes, agency notes were coming through and directing the modelers and creation of all these assets done correctly according to the technical specifications for Unreal at the same time. So I was filtering all of that, you know, and adjusting all of that and then sending it to the Unreal guys, and they would give me feedback and I would feedback the other guys and then telling the director, meeting with the virtual set production people to talk about what's possible, what's not possible, and the techniques that would be involved to make sure the shot goes smoothly.
Right.
Yeah, it was quite, now that I said all that, that was a lot.
Yeah, now that you're thinking about that, that's a really great question because it gets you thinking about what you took away from that project too.
Yeah, it was I think, yeah. And and like I didn't know exactly that how much taxing that would have been. Like I think if I had started earlier and had some other people to divide that with, that would have been helpful.
It's understandable. Before you show your next project with our wonderful participants, Lisa's wondering if you can kindly remind us as to what software programs you use to implement this particular project.
In this particular project, we use Maya. We use Substance Painter, which is a big, beautiful program. I love it. I feel like I'm cheating every time I use it. Substance Painter is basically like a texturing program. We used Unreal Engine to create all the real-time, to put all the stuff together, I guess, you could put it that way. We use ZBrush as well to create a lot of the sculpting of, that's part of the asset creation process. We did not use any Houdini in here. Oh no, we did. Sorry, we did. We used some Houdini work, but that was mainly to do something called vertex animation, which is a way to optimize animation so that it's not moving. Boy, that's a hard one. It's basically shader-based animation work, a way to optimize real-time animation. Let's keep it there.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you. Well, I guess on to our next project, I suspect.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention, yeah, there's some post-work, so we use Nuke as well to composite and finish this, and Flame to actually do the work. Okay, there.
All the things, almost all the things.
Almost all the things. You want to talk about the other project, this one?
Yes, please. That would be great.
I
think this is a wonderful piece and it's so special. And we also showcased it on our Instagram channel earlier this week.
You did? Nice. Yeah, so this is really, I love this project. This was done for Honda for the, well, let's just put it this way. Honda sponsored an event, an all-day event at the Children's Hospital of Orange County to help raise awareness and funds for the hospital that treats children with cancer. This is out in California. And so we did this for 3 years until they changed campaigns and so forth. This one particular one is the last one that I worked on. And it's a virtual reality execution. Also, we used Unreal. The headset that you're seeing there is called the Vive. We just put a lot of stickers on it to kind of hide it. We did some 3D printed snowmen there, characters, that was really fun. So we added that at the end. There was a bunch of people in our office when we were in the office doing all the paint work for this. It was really cute. And so we would set up and we go there for the day and put on this kind of event. Actually, I should just play it, right?
Oh, yes, please. I think that would be.
Yeah. Which one is it? This one. So what happened is they recorded the day and we interviewed the kids and parents and so forth. And they put this little documentary together, small one, to then promote awareness for the hospital and get more funding and so forth. And so like for this many likes, Honda will then send more money to the hospital, that kind of stuff. Here we go. Can you hear?
There is admittedly no sound, I'm afraid. Oh, now it's. I'm starting to hear something now, Picorn. Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
For the past 3 years, we've been in the hospital. We haven't had a chance to actually celebrate a Christmas or it's been pretty rough.
I would like to go in there.
You want to shrink and go inside the snow globe?
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh, looks so cool. Welcome, Cindy. Hello. Oh, the train. No! Whoa! Oh, it's so cute! Oh, a snowman came out!
How was your trip?
My trip was amazing.
Yeah?
How was your trip? What was in there? I didn't see. I wasn't in there with you.
So awesome. Oh, look it.
Yeah.
It's like what I just saw.
That's right.
This is the same snowman that was inside my imagination.
How cool. One of the friends goes home with you.
What?
What?
Awesome. What?
You like that?
Yeah.
To be able to see my patients have the opportunity to experience joy and happiness and to be able to forget cancer and just be a child is truly a miracle.
I wish my family a happy holiday.
Oh, I always get so emotional watching this video, Picorn. It's such a
know.
beautiful project.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, we're all tearing up over here. Absolutely gorgeous, and it really, really has such an incredible impact on those who are on the receiving end.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a small tidbit there you might not have noticed for people who watch this for the first time is that the kids get to actually create their own snowman in the game, and I would be watching on the sidelines to see which one they created, and then once they pick one, I'd run over to the right gift. You saw that the gift being put down on the table, the right one, which I had to kind of remember, but I would run over and then quietly put it on the table because it wasn't there before. And then when they take the goggles off, that's the snowman they would take home with
Oh, that's beautiful. I didn't realize that the last time that I watched it, so that's quite special.
Yeah, it's a good one. We try to put in these little things, you know, like our first one that we did, that was a virtual, just a basic virtual 360 ride, which is this one here. Santa comes to town and drops a present, and I would watch the TV, and I would hold the present above their lap. And then the virtual present would fly down, they were watching, and then it would land in the virtual lap, basically, that they're, because they have the goggles on. And at the same time, I would drop a real present on their lap, you know, and everybody was like, oh my God, how did that happen? So
wow.
we try to put in these little tricks in there, kind of mix the real and virtual together.
What was the time frame you had for each of these spots? You know, I'm conscious you worked on quite a few of them, but
Yeah.
what was the general average timeline, and what did the team look like?
Generally we'll come in towards the end of August, and all the creative and the planning and the execution of the pre-production phase, like previs and all that kind of stuff, and the design work we done in September. October we would do all the animation and any kind of code work that needs to be done in Unreal, or actually we use Unreal for all of them. And then we shoot it in November, somewhere in the early to mid-November for Thanksgiving. And then they would edit that together and release it somewhere in mid-December. That's awesome. Generally the timeline I was going with. The team weren't very big. You know, in the beginning of September, they're just basically designers, me, and maybe a couple of other asset creation modelers, and some dev people who were doing, like, we're doing this AR execution over here. When AR kit came out for Apple, you know, we had some other developers on the side to make sure that was working. So they were kind of, because it just came out in August, and everybody was like, let's use it. Like, it just came out, we're gonna try to use it. it's nuts, but it worked.
As it happens in the industry.
Yeah, it worked-ish. You know, it worked well enough, put it that way.
When you say it worked-ish, why do you say it worked-ish?
Well, the tracking wasn't quite there.
Got it.
You can actually see it in that frame there. You see there's like a lighter square panel, and then
Right.
darker one. That's the book. So there's a virtual book that's supposed to sit on the table that really covers the physical book that's there. So the tracking was a little bit off, but it's magic, and everybody was like, "It's snowing in the room," they're putting their iPad around. It's kind of crazy, and that was a sweet one. That was where, in the end, we asked them to blow out the candle or something.
Uh-huh.
They blew into the iPad, and I was standing on the side, of course, with the little button ready to go. So they blew into the iPad, and I press on a button, everything explodes into confetti inside, and they're like, "Oh!" And then I would tell them there's a new technology that understands breath and all that, and their minds are blowing.
Oh, that's incredible. That's so special. What was a challenge that you might have had on this project? I'm sure there were some.
This one, yeah, I mean, we were challenged with trying to use new technology in production, in these kind of installments. So we had to balance out how much we could create to keep it entertaining, and also what the audience is. We're talking about showing it to kids who may be undergoing treatment, who may not have the strength, who may get dizzy quicker than others.
Yeah.
So we had to be very mindful of who they were, or who the audience was, to make sure that we weren't creating something that would make them feel worse than they are. Like, that's horrible, right? So we want to make sure that we deliver more of the magic than anything else. The technical challenges, trying to keep that at a place where we're pushing the boundaries, but not so far into it that it might fail. So we had to be very selective on where we were pushing. So I think finding that balance of those three was the hardest thing for this project. Having the motivation to do the project. I mean, we were all 300%, 1000% in on making sure this is going to happen. And there was definitely some lucky things that happened, such as how it goes in our life and in the industry. We got lucky. Our first one, we got really lucky. We just kept on pace, even though I was rendering something that was taking like 3 to 4 hours per frame. And then we were like, okay, so 3-4 hours of frame times, how long is this experience? Like 60 seconds or 3 minutes or whatever it is. I forgot. It was like, okay, so we would have to put pencils down about a month before we actually, deliver this. That's not possible. So, we kept hammering at it, and luckily we had a brilliant lighter. I can't even call him a lighter anymore. I mean, he works for Autodesk now, heading up Bifrost, Jonah Friedman. So Jonah Friedman is like this brain that is beyond brains. And he figured out a method and a way to bring down the render time to a half an hour. And not just a half an hour, but a half an hour at really high settings that look way better than my 3-hour renders before. And we all finally, could take a breath when that came out. That was very lucky for us. He was in contact with Arnold back in those days, so they had a very special relationship, and he knew the ins and outs of that. But boy, that was lucky.
That's wonderful. It sounds like you had quite the team.
Yeah. I mean, everybody wanted to work on it. Like, it was one of those things. Like, who wouldn't want to work on this kinds of projects?
No, 100%. 100%. So it's quite wonderful that you've had the opportunity to work on such special, heartwarming projects, because it's so important to be able to give back to our communities and do that. I'm also love for you to speak to other ways in which other projects that you might have worked on that really resonated with you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I should balance this out, that with the fact that I don't do this every day, and every project is not this special. Just to kind of say it, like, well, I mean, it's the reality is that I'm a commercial artist, and sometimes they're asking me to spin a logo, and it's like, all right, yeah, and sometimes I'm selling sugar water, and and they're like, well, we'd like this blemish to go away. Like, okay, so you're sitting there painting the blemish, yeah, but yeah, this is my site, which I have not updated. Sorry, Kat, I will update it.
I'm going to give you a hard time about this for quarantine. Offline, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the other near and dear projects to my heart is the Egg Nightmare for Malaria projects, which we also, worked with students on. This is back in 2012, I believe, 2013. No, 2013 is when my son was born. Yeah, I was on this crazy project. So this was like an internship or intensive internship that we made at SciOp with 8 students from all over the place, all over the world, I would say. All across the country. They came and assembled at SciOp, and we created this crazy piece to elevate the cause for Against Malaria Foundation. And their mission was, what's the lowest hanging fruit to get people protected from malaria? There's other people like the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation that are researching vaccines and so forth. But Against Malaria Foundation was like, look, a net is like $1 or $2. Let's just get them nets. Hopefully they'll use it. Of course, that'll be the other part. But it's cheap, and we can get them there. And that's what they focused on, and became really efficient and effective at it. Basically, it's one guy in the back of his house somewhere in England who's doing this. And we found out that through some websites that critique the industry, that kind of nonprofit industry of how effective a nonprofit is, his agency or nonprofit organization came up on top. And so we called him up and said, hey, can we make a piece for you? And he loved it, and that's how it went.
I'd love for you to share this project actually within our space, because I think it really resonates, being able to see so many of our younger participants being a part of this kind of a project.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, this is about a 12-week program. Being mentored every week by different specialists in the SciOp building, basically. So it's a very unique kind of way to create content and learn and intern, which I haven't seen anywhere else really yet. It definitely takes a lot of effort on both the mentors and the mentees to get this done. All right, let me play this. I haven't watched this in ages.
I haven't either. It's been such a long time on my end too.
All right, here we go.
Here's a tale without an ending, about a princess that needs defending. When closing her eyes to go to sleep, from her mind her dreams would leap. All creatures big and small would play, all but one who stalked his prey. The evil king, malaria fed, his parasites then began to spread through the cells and to the liver. Her blood becomes a deadly river with fever, convulsions, and vicious sickness. Her end approaches with stunning quickness. This nightmare is a worldwide threat, yet the simplest thing can stop it: a net. It's such a small thing to buy, so millions like the princess will not die.
It's a wonderful project. A very familiar voice narrating as well.
Yes. Somebody knew somebody who knew Susan Sarandon, and she agreed to do the voice for it. And I was there for that session. She's such a pro and such a lovely person.
I've heard such wonderful things about her as well.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, she came in, and her first take, we were all like, oh, that's great. She's like, yeah, let me try it this way. Like, okay. Yeah, and she just offered up. We were like, that's amazing. And she's like, oh, let me try a little slower. Here you go. It was really nice. I also want to mention the Q department, who did the audio. They also donated their time and did the whole scoring of this, and they're amazing people to work with as well.
Well, speaking of amazing, both Justin and Sean, who are two of our participants, also felt that this project was very amazing. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Any challenges that you could speak of to this project?
Yeah, yeah. It was like it's like a reality show. You bring a whole bunch of people together that haven't met each other before and haven't done any real production before, and then and try to make them do something, or shepherd them through this whole piece and make something pretty at the end of it that is, of the psyop level. And to put on top of that, it's not just one look for the whole piece. It's a 2D piece and a 3D piece all put together in a way that works together. So that was pretty rough. We had some pretty amazing luck with the talent that came on board. I think one of the standout was the designer Pedro, who came from Cal Arts, I think. He's a director, commercial director now, around in New York. And boy, he came in and just kind of started sketching, and I was like, yes, this is the look that we're looking for. So the challenge was on many fronts. My wife was we were having a baby in the middle of all this too, so I took off for a week when my younger son was born, and they kept chugging forward. It was it was a lot of challenges, but mainly it was I gotta say everybody was freaking out. Let's put it that way. Like, how can we make this happen? There's no way we can make this happen. And a lot of times it was like, I know that they can do this. I've seen their work. I know they can do this. They just need to stay the course, put in a little bit more effort than they assumed that they were going to do. They could do this. And so a lot of it was just making sure that they understood that they are capable of this. And they came through. And a lot of the conversations at the end of this was, oh my gosh, I was freaking out. I didn't think we were going to be able to do this, but we made it. I made this animation piece. I didn't know how to do that when I started, but I did it. It was a really cool thing to see, the transformation and the confidence that came out of many of these artists. It was definitely a struggle. And there were times like my friend said, every project is a struggle. It's not like all peaches and cream. You may look that way in the behind the scenes, like, oh, look what we did, wipe, look at that before and after, it looks amazing. But there's a lot of trials and tribulations and psychology and physical endurance that kind of is involved with it as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I loved your reference of saying that it was like a reality TV show, having different personalities, different styles of working, and everyone just sort of collaborating together.
Yeah. We just had to go, and I had to, I see some of them was just like, they came in. I thought they were good at this, but they were actually good at that, and so we had to kind of reconfigure who was approaching what solutions, I guess, or what problems. Yeah.
No, it makes sense. Kira's wondering, what sort of softwares did you use for this particular project, and is it expensive, or can our participants have access to less expensive software such that they could also pursue a similar career?
Oh my gosh, of course. For those who have apps and on iPads or Androids, there are free 2D animation apps out there. Hope you're not hearing. It's my dishwasher just went on. Anyways.
I didn't hear anything. I don't know.
We're good. I think it was on a timer. We use Photoshop a lot, After Effects. So Photoshop for animating. There are a lot of 2D Windows app. Like Toon Boom is free, actually. That's one. You can use TV Paint is really popular for 2D animation work. But there are plenty of others, and there's so many that are open source and free. Like, I just use Blender. That's probably where I would go. You could do a lot of 2D work there. You could do a lot of 3D work there. You can edit there. I think that would be where I would point you guys to, instead of trying to grab a whole bunch of different other softwares. If Blender looks too complex to you, maybe then you can go back to something that is more suited for 2D animation specific things, like geared towards one thing or the other. But I think Toon Boom is probably the other one. Toon Boom's been used over at in Japan for a lot of anime work for years, and then they open sourced that 5 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I appreciate you referencing Toon Boom, because it's come up often in our conversations with fellow guest professionals who are visiting us, or professionals who have guested with us. Opal's wondering how long this particular project took to animate.
To animate, I mean, the whole process was about 12 weeks. Probably, yeah, but I think that's the official statement. It's probably more like 14.
Well, that's still a very short period of time.
It's a very short amount of time. Yeah, and animation on this was probably, you know, within that time was probably, I don't know, half of that time,
Right.
or maybe less actually. We had a couple different animators on this, you know, and you know, there were 2D animations and 3D animations, so it's tough to say. It took, you know, the first weeks, like pre-production, like storyboarding and design frames and prevising and all of that took the first third chunk of that process. You know, then execution comes after that. And so if, you know, we're talking about 12 weeks, the first month was pretty much dedicated to kind of developing what the story was going to be. And then we had 2 months to kind of make it happen. So, you know, I would say the animation is probably within the 4-week kind of scenario, to, yeah, specifically for animation. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Owen Samuel's wondering, how many ideas did you have to kick around ahead of coming up with this final product? There must have been a meeting of the minds of sorts, or a lot of different.
That's a very good question, because we didn't come to the students with a blank slate. We worked with a creative director. So this program started somewhere in June, I think. And in January, I started preparing for the project. We brought in reached out to a creative director slash writer to concept out some ideas with us. She did this also for free, you know, as that was really nice of her. And so we came up with this concept of the basic story, this nightmare, you know, journey, right? And so we had like a basic script to go with. So that's what I brought to the table to the students, saying, hey, we're making a spot for Against Malaria Foundation. This is the basic story of it. Let's talk about what specifically is happening in these shots, what the character looks like, what the color palette looks like, what the sound design might be like. And so they went out and started researching and bringing references in for the kind of look and feel and all of that, you know? I think I had some images as far as references to get them started as well. I wonder if I have that handy.
Oh, it would be great for you to share that. We'd love that.
Yeah, let me hide my Google deep dive here.
Yes. Do you want to quickly unshare your screen for a moment?
No, it's you can, while I'm searching around, you can ask another question.
Absolutely. I mean, what I'd love for you to do is, if you could kindly just share some words of wisdom or words of advice for our wonderful participants about ways in which they could access an opportunity within this world, whether it's to become a computer graphics artist or to work as an artist who works in virtual production. Maybe they're a developer. Like, what are some recommendations you have for them so as to, you know, jump into this world? This very exciting world, I might add.
I mean, you know, there's so many different entry points. I think, you know, there's a couple things. One is you have to get to know somebody, right? And however that is, in terms of getting in the door, being the person who's running and getting things for production, or, you know, kind of like the lower rung of the totem pole, that gets you an introduction to the people that are doing these kinds of things. I think those are the easier entryways. The harder entryways is becoming one of the artists or technicians within that group, to be able to participate in the production themselves. You know, with that said, in this world, I think there are two things that you need to balance. One is developing your eye, which is just like the art foundation, knowing what looks good, knowing what to critique and how to critique a moving picture, knowing some film theory, those kinds of things that are gonna, you know, stay with you. And then knowing the kind of software on the other side of it, knowing the software and the hardware requirements, you know, where the buttons are and that kind of thing to make things happen. So the balance of those two things will help you get closer to pursuing and being involved, I think. But I think, you know, it's always hard to see going forward how everything gets connected and how you got here. You know, like I tripped over a bunch of different things, and I, you know, I'm like, I took on opportunities that didn't look like it was gonna lead me anywhere. you know, but I met some cool people, and all of a sudden, like, oh, look at that. Like, they're calling me up to come over to do something like this. And next thing you know, this led to this and that led to that. And like looking back at it, it was a little more obvious, of course, but that's, you know, hindsight's 2020, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to kind of, you know, take on the opportunities that are presented to you and see where it leads.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
Oh, now I gotta look for that stuff.
Yeah, it would be nice to end on a wonderful visual.
Oh my gosh. Let's see if I even have it. I might have it
no,
on a
maybe you are.
drive. It's been 20, it's, you know, what's it call it? 2012. So
Yeah, I think you said it was 2012 in our conversation.
yeah. See if I have it.
Fingers and toes crossed, but if not, I might just sneak in one last question.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'm still looking. I'm so sorry.
And no, not to worry. You just teased us with this.
I know, I did.
Well, I mean, I guess last but not least, you know, any other points that we didn't cover, any other thoughts for our group this afternoon ahead of them us rounding out this this webinar?
I'm sorry, I lost. What was that?
Oh, no, if there's anything that you wanted to add that we may not have covered throughout our conversation.
And no, I don't think so. I mean, well, you know, no, I guess you know, they get we're all working remotely. That's kind of crazy.
How do you manage that?
You know, hoping for the best with the internet connection. That's one thing.
Yes. We also, a lot of folks who have joined us throughout the past few months have seen my internet kick in and out throughout these conversations. So
right.
Appreciate everyone bearing with me.
You know, it's hard. The communication is really hard. That's all. You know, trying to get that together. I mean, you know, choreographing and coordinating. Sorry, not choreographing. Coordinating is a little harder. Trying to make sure everybody has the right information and not kind of in their own world for too long before they go on a different direction. But on the other hand, you know, the idea that I'm off of a meeting call and then all of a sudden I could turn around and like make my kid lunch or something like that, that's kind of nice. Or pick them up, you know, pick them up from school or go out and jump around the park and then come back and keep on working. Those are the good parts.
The lovely moments for sure.
Yeah. I don't have this. I found my folder, but I don't have it. But I do have this old test.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's a beautiful image to leave us on.
Yeah, look at that. So this is like a work in progress.
We'll just have to have you come back and join us and share more work.
Yeah, actually, I have to call Saab and be like, hey, where's the deck for that?
Where are these images? Well, listen, Bicorn, it was such a pleasure having you here. It's always so special to be able to share this space with you. You always have so much wisdom and so much to share with our wonderful participants, and we've been very lucky to have you. So we hope to have you back. We hope to keep in touch. We love having you, as I've said, and I'll just keep re-emphasizing that. And otherwise, from there, you know, we'll pass the baton on over to Lisa and to Lyndon.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Bicorn.
Thank you for having me, guys.
For joining us this afternoon. It's been quite special.
Wow, thank you so much, Picorn. It's so awesome to hear your journey, your process, your work. Definitely leaving here today with your words of wisdom when you see an opportunity to just see where it leads. So thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Picorn. It was really amazing here today and hearing your words of wisdom and also seeing your work.
And here we are, Lyndon. It's about that time. We're gonna jump into our closing ritual for today. So, and Lyndon, in our small groups this week, we've been talking a lot about characters and character traits, both external and internal. So we're gonna invite everybody, wherever you are in your own place and space, to visualize your own superpower, whether that's your determination, your creativity, sense of humor, whatever it may be, visualize it. And on the count of 3, Lyndon, you and I are going to model for everybody who's joining in at home. We're going to create a pose that represents our power, our superpower. You ready?
I'm ready.
1,
2,
2,
3.
Mine moves.
I'm supposed to be flying.
Oh, you're flying. Awesome.
Yeah.
Mine is my flexibility and movement. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining in on our closing ritual for today. Over to you, Lyndon.
Yes, thank you so much, Lisa. So it looks like we've come to the end of today's mega group. Please remember to stay connected with us through our website as well as our social media. And again, thank you for joining the Made in New York Animation Project Mega Group. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everyone. See you guys soon.
Take care.